Now this is truly breathtaking, I wasn't expecting this at all. The photo on the left is clearly sharper than the one on the right and is shot on the 200 megapixels high-res mode on the Honor 400 Pro compared to the 12 megapixels one shot on the same phone. While other than just the cameras, we'll also be covering their AI features, battery life, processing power, and heat dissipation as well. Tell me the name of this building.
Did you know it was originally designed to be the tallest building in the world?
Are there supermarkets in this building?
Yes, there's a Welcome supermarket on the second floor of the hall one.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be thanking the AI as that's causing extra load and traffic. But here we've got 4 of the most popular mid-rangers in 2025 here on the bench. So the 4 phones we have here today are actually flagship killers in the mid to upper mid-range segment. We have the most powerful Poco F7 Ultra with a Snapdragon 8 Elite chip inside, the Honor 400 Pro, probably the best camera in this segment, the Vivo V50, the absolute best for photo, especially low-light portrait, and the Samsung Galaxy A56. Now this is quite interesting, it's actually priced slightly lower than the rest of this competition, so do expect slightly lower specification, but it's more budget friendly after all. When it comes to the design though, Samsung definitely gave us the best they could on a mid-ranger. Now we're looking at a really good looking metal frame with all this brushed aluminium texture, glass on the front and back. Their screen sizes are actually quite similar. The Samsung Galaxy A56 comes with a 6.7 inches flat display. Now the Poco F7 Ultra comes with a 6.67 inches display and it's also completely flat. The back of the phone here, however, uses a dual-tone design, with one end glossy and the other end frosted. The back here is more noticeably curved, it feels more rounded in hand. Speaking of rounded and curved, that's especially true for the Vivo V50 and the Honor 400 Pro. They both have quad curved 3D screen up front, 3D curved glass on the back as well. So if you do like flat screens, then Samsung and Poco are your best bet. Now when it comes to the ports and the hardware, in-screen fingerprint sensors just the standard nowadays, while the Honor 400 Pro, Vivo V50 and the Samsung Galaxy A56 all opted for optical fingerprint sensors. Xiaomi did push the limit. We are getting an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor here, so it's more secure. While speaking of security, the Honor 400 Pro has a noticeably larger dual front camera cutout, but thanks to those dual cameras, it is a secure 3D face unlock. That's probably why we're still getting the dynamic islands on the iPhone. Right, all 4 of these phones, there's no microSD card expansion this time, at least it's no longer the case on Samsung's A series in 2025. All 4 phones have stereo speakers, and as for weight, they all feel very similar in size and weight. Water resistance also worth mentioning. The Vivo V50, Honor and Poco all have IP68 ratings. Samsung, on the other hand, is rated IP67. Now, before we dive right into the cameras, let's check out the screens as well. The Honor 400 Pros peaked at 5000 nits. That's a mesmerizing figure, at least at a small portion of the display. The Poco F7 Ultra's peak brightness is sitting at 1800 nits. Small portion of the display can get up to 3200 nits. The Vivo V50 peaks at 1300 nits, while the peak brightness of a small portion of the display can get up to 4500 nits. Last but not least, the Samsung A56 display can get to 1900 nits. Actually, the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7 Ultra does match their own flagship, as we are getting 2K resolution on the Poco and a 1280 by 2000 display on the Honor 400 Pro, close to 2K. On the contrary, both Samsung and Vivo are using a 1080p Full HD Plus display here. But the Vivo V50, Honor 400 Pro and Poco F7 Ultra, they actually show colors that are very close to their own flagship models, or even match them. Now, due to the A56 is still slightly more affordable, so when it's compared to the S25, the brightness is still not as outstanding as the S25. But in daily use, based on my eyesight and vision, for things like using WhatsApp, Instagram and YouTube probably, that slight difference isn't really a deciding factor in my opinion. Now, the camera might actually be what makes the difference. Now, this is truly breathtaking, I wasn't expecting this at all. The photo on the left is clearly sharper than the one on the right and is shot on the 200 megapixels high-res mode on the Honor 400 Pro, compared to the 12 megapixels one shot on the same phone. On the Honor 400 Pro here, we are looking at a 200 megapixels main camera with a 1/1.14-inch gigantic flagship tier, truly top-notch sensor, and a 12 megapixels ultra-wide camera. Now, the rest of the competition, the other three phones, all feature a 1/1.6-inch 50 megapixels main camera, and that's not bad at all. That's actually flagship tier as well. While on the Poco F7 Ultra, we have a slightly smaller 1/3.42-inch 32 megapixels ultra-wide-angle lens. And we have a slightly larger 1/2.76-inch, also 50 megapixels ultra-wide camera sensor on the Vivo V50. And at last, we have a 1/3.06-inch 12 megapixels sensor on the ultra-wide-angle lens on the Samsung A56. Right, at 12 megapixels and on the main camera and ultra-wide-angle lens, especially in good lighting, their dynamic range, HDR processing, and even when you zoom in for the details, the results are actually pretty similar, even at high magnification. So we're not gonna spend a decade talking about daylight shots here. The 200 high-res mode here on the Honor 400 Pro, on the other hand, is definitely worth mentioning. In fact, I do recommend, if you're gonna get the Honor 400 Pro, the high-res mode should be put here, right on the main screen. Just one click after you open the camera, we are talking about day and night difference between 12 and 200 megapixels, while not sacrificing the dynamic range and color processing at all. Right, what about comparing these 200 megapixels photos to those 50 megapixels ones on the other three? Now, it's genuinely impressive. Honor's not just chasing big numbers here. You do get extra resolution in real life, and it does bring you extra details. It's almost like getting another photo altogether, or spot the details you didn't notice before, so I do recommend you to at least try this out if you're gonna get this phone. Right, the Poco F7 Ultra has a unique feature as well. The telephoto lens on this phone can actually also act as a tele-macro lens, having a shortest focal distance of 10 centimeters, so you are getting a 60mm telephoto macro effect. Alright, night photography. I wasn't expecting this again. We are getting more noticeable differences this time around in the main camera and the ultra-wide-angle lens. Vivo's night photo does look cooler and have higher contrast. So you'll basically notice in some scenarios like this particular one, the night shots, well, the results can be pretty impressive. It does give you a cooler look and photos with slightly higher contrast. Right, the Poco F7 Ultra. Shots could look slightly warm and reddish. It's not every time, but it tends to do so. Detail levels are quite similar to the Vivo V50 and the Samsung A56. Speaking of the A56, Samsung's night HDR's got one big focus to preserve the highlights and bring out all the details from the shadows. So basically it just brightens the darker areas the most, that the entire photo gets evenly exposed, and it also tends to keep the highlights under control. So even for beginners, it's quite difficult to get a shot that is too bright or too dark or underexposed or maybe overexposed on the A56. Well, the trade-off could be the contrast isn't as strong, so the image does look a bit flatter compared to the rest of the competition. Considering those phones are already nearly at flagship level, or maybe match flagship phones, so the A56 main camera, honestly, it's almost on a par with the flagship phones. Alright, the Honor 400 Pro, color interpretation on Honor's phone has been on the vibrant end all these years. However, in terms of color accuracy, especially when it comes to the white balance, the Honor 400 Pro this time around actually reproduces colors really well. It doesn't look too cool or maybe too warm. And it also does a great job in controlling the highlights. You basically never get overexposed or blown out photos. And when you do zoom in to examine all these details on the Honor 400 Pro, you're not only getting a 200 megapixels sensor on the main camera on the Honor 400 Pro, but also this 1/1.14-inch large sensor, so it does perform really well in low light. You will be able to tell the difference even at 12 megapixels. Alright, moving on to the telephoto camera, we do have a slightly larger sensor 1/2-inch on the Honor 400 Pro, while the 60mm lens on the Poco F7 Ultra comes with 50 megapixels as well, and that's 1/2.76-inch to be exact. And you're right, the third camera on the Samsung Galaxy A56 is indeed a super macro camera, so just like the Vivo V50, they both lack a real telephoto camera. At 3x zoom, however, I would say the difference is, well, you can tell the difference, but the gap between the two phones without a telephoto camera and the two phones with a telephoto camera definitely widens as your zoom level increases. At 5x zoom, especially 10x and more, now this is 10x, you are getting a whole lot more details out of the photos taken by the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7 Ultra, while they do actually perform quite similarly at this range. Now, starting from 20x and up, the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7 Ultra utilizes AI upscaling. Believe it or not, they actually perform relatively similarly. I didn't expect it at all again. So on the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7 Ultra, with the telephoto camera, you do get sharper, clearer, not necessarily brighter images, but clearly more solid zooming capabilities in low light. Right, portrait mode photography. This is where the Vivo V50 shines and outperforms the rest of the competition. You will be getting extra portrait mode features on the Vivo V50 and the Honor 400 Pro. On the Honor 400 Pro, once again they are partnering with Harcourt Studio, so you will be getting all these color options. Film simulation effects here in the meantime will actually be quite useful for portrait and street photography as well. Right, we are getting several film styles to choose from. Well, as you might have been expecting, each profile recreates its own lighting and color effects. So if you are to give this scene a darker look, or a fresh vibe instead. However, when it comes to portrait photography, you can't really skip the Vivo, can you? I would say Vivo's got one of the best, if not the absolute best, portrait mode on the planet. Especially this time around on the Vivo V50, they've actually dropped the exact same entire full functioning portrait mode from the X200 Pro flagship series. They've even actually added new ones here. Maybe from at least Vivo's point of view, the V series is meant for portrait photography. And in reality, we are getting an extra aura light system here, which is a huge fill light. This is truly what separates the Vivo V50 from the rest of the competition in my opinion, as it's the only phone that supports a fill light with the portrait mode. It does help, especially when you're taking portrait photos with the portrait mode in low light or backlight scenes. Especially the Vivo Dust comes with all those processing in the highlight in the portrait bokeh shots. As up to my understanding, this is actually their first time putting the Zeiss logo here even for the V series. So just like the X200 Pro, here you've got all the classic Zeiss bokeh effects on the V50 here as well this time around. So the portrait mode, together with those bokeh effects, it really gives the Vivo V50 an edge in portrait shots. Alright, now we all know the Vivo V50 does bring the best bokeh effect and the fill light support as well, but when it comes to the more practical perspective, in terms of the accuracy of the edge detection, it's truly the golden age for smartphone photography, especially when it comes to the mid-range phone this year. Even the A56 at a slightly lower price range. It is now using relatively more advanced portrait mode algorithms right now. Edge detection and the rendering of the bokeh effect across all these four phones are actually surprisingly impressive. This applies to the main camera as well as 2x zoom as well. At 2x around 15mm across all these four phones, all of them are using the main camera and doing in-sensor zoom, and I'm standing further away from the phone. Edge detection and the transition from my face to the background. Can you really tell it's a photo taken from a smartphone? Maybe you can, but it's really good. Right, here's another key difference, especially when it comes to the telephoto lens. Here on the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7, they can both shoot in portrait mode using the telephoto camera. This means you can get up to around 70 or 75mm, compressing the background and focusing on the main subject just that slightly more compared to the other two phones. Alright, finally we have the battery life, AI, processing power, heat dissipation performance test. For all the AI stuff this year, the Galaxy A series doesn't have all the full set of the Galaxy AI features yet. What it does comes with is mainly about photo editing. The Magic Eraser is included. It's not the exact same one-of-a-kind photo editor on the S25 Ultra, but we'll get back to this in a minute. But what it does also comes with is this best face feature. To use this feature properly, you will have to turn on this motion photo function here. The best face feature simply allows you to select your best face. So just like this particular one here, I can open my eye when I was actually blinking when I was pressing that shutter button. Alright, the Vivo V50, it does comes with slightly more AI features compared to the A56, but it's still not the full set from the X200 Pro series. Right, text generation is included. The photo editor, which is one of the best on the market right now from the X series, is also included as well. However, if you are specifically seeking for the broadest support of AI features, the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7 Ultra will be your choice. So basically, the Honor 400 Pro is coming with essentially all its best and newest features. Right, there is one unique feature on the 400 Pro that's worth mentioning, is that it now comes with an AI tool that turns a still photo into video. Now just imagine you can actually combine it with the also newly added image expansion feature. So from a photo with a narrow field of view to a video with a wide field of view. Though this feature is still a bit limited, we can't actually just use a prompt to instruct it what to do. A specific action or posture, and it's limited to 10 times a day. I would say it's adequate. I do admit I'm using it slightly less now compared to the first 72 hours when I was playing with this phone. Right, now we're talking about the AI writing and summary feature. Now this is quite interesting. All the Poco F7 Ultra, Honor 400 Pro and the Vivo V50 have their own note app with their in-house trained AI summary feature embedded right in the app. Well, it's not the case on the A56, however. We do get some limitation on the A56 when it comes to AI features, especially built-in AI. So what you can do on the AI part on the A56, well, just long press your side button to activate Google Gemini. We have the Gemini 2.5 Pro version here. And here's a few daily use scenarios which I found especially useful when I was trying to push its limit. Tell me the name of this building.
That's the tower. It's a really interesting building with a cool...
Are there supermarkets in this building?
Yes, there are a few supermarkets in the Nina Tower. There's a welcome supermarket on the second floor.
What about the opening hours of it?
Both the welcome supermarket and the 7-Eleven are open from 7 AM to 11 PM.
It's pretty impressive, isn't it? So it gave me the name of this building, and it does knows what's inside it. And it even gave me the opening hours of a specific store in the shopping mall inside. And I can approve it, the answer's actually correct. Right, now I'm trying to let Gemini help me ask a member of the staff of the park the directions from the entrance to this particular exact part of the park in Spanish, and now speaking Cantonese, my mother tongue, so it understands Cantonese, gave me an answer in Mandarin, it reads English, which is printed on the leaflet here, and speaks Spanish all at once.
Hola, ¿cómo puedo llegar a la Plaza de la Naturaleza desde la entrada?
Well, I really appreciate what Google's doing here. However, with all those possibilities you will be able to get from Google Gemini, you will also need an internet connection. Right, Gemini Live's definitely a near-perfect personal assistant. But what we can do here using the main interface on the Gemini app. Right, so that's a photo taken with the A56 pointing straight out of the window. Do you know the name of the building in the background with a glass facade? Right, the A56 doesn't really have a telephoto camera, so the quality of the image isn't really that great at all. And there's honestly quite a few skyscrapers on the background there, and it recognizes that particular one I was describing.
Based on the distinctive spire and the mountainous background, the tall building with the pointed top strongly resembles Central Plaza in Hong Kong.
Right, are there any supermarkets near that building? Right, so it's recognizing that particular building from a photo that I shot from great distance, and it further utilizes Google Maps to search what's near that building for me. Can you navigate me to the welcome in Great George Street?
Okay, I have navigation information for you to welcome.
There you go, just try it out, it could be your next way to use Google Maps. Right, on-device AI interpreter, you will be getting this on the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7 Ultra, as they are both getting the full set of AI support. Well, while you can download a third-party app on Google Play Store, or just simply use Google Translate online, Call Translate, however, you will have to get the Poco F7 Ultra or the Honor 400 Pro to get this extra feature. However, it's worth noting that the Honor 400 Pro does have some limitation when it comes to the supported languages. Well, you do get tons of language support on the Poco F7 Ultra. Right, speaking of instant translation and transcription, you will have to download a third-party app again on the A56 and the Vivo V50. Right, if we compare the Honor 400 Pro to the Poco F7 Ultra, we do get extra options here on the Honor. The AI Minute feature actually allows us to pick from several templates. I have to admit, this feature on the Honor is really smart. Moving on to image editing. Right, as we've mentioned before, on the A56, we do get an image editing tool here similar to the S25, but in fact it works slightly differently compared to the S25's option to enhance the results with the aid of the online model. Everything here on the A56 is on-device. On the contrary though, if you insist to use a cloud-based editor, Google Photos is always here, and it definitely performs better than the original one built in on the A56. It's almost matching the S25. This is truly a huge step up compared to the one built into the A56. Now, this is actually quite comparable to the other three devices. Even in some cases, the A56 using Google Photo outperformed the others. Great, now let's look at one more example. This one also really puts it to the test. I just lost count on how many pedestrians were actually all around me. The photo generated with Google Photos on the A56 actually seems to be slightly more realistic, at least to my eyes, compared to the Poco F7 Ultra. The level of detail and texture is actually quite similar to the one generated by the Honor 400 Pro and the Vivo V50. Now, what really makes the Honor 400 Pro and the Poco F7 Ultra stand out is the ability to expand a photo. Now, let's look at which phone expands a photo better. Let's dive right in and push this phone to the max. Alright, this shot is missing a quarter of my body and one shoulder. The Honor 400 Pro keeps my proportion more natural, I would say. It's more convincing overall. Even the nearby flowers and plants look slightly a bit more realistic. Trust me, I've run both sets 3 to 5 times each, just to keep it fair. Now, looking at this night shot, the texture on the body it generated and the shape of my hand, well, the AI generated hand, looks a bit more realistic on the one generated by the Honor 400 Pro. Alright, while the Honor 400 Pro seems to be taking the lead in the 200 megapixels main camera, the Poco F7 Ultra though is equipped with the latest and greatest Snapdragon 80 Elite processor, while the Honor 400 Pro does comes with a flagship tier chipset as well, the last gen flagship Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Meanwhile, the Vivo V50 comes with a Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 chipset. The Samsung A56 at last comes with an Samsung in-house Exynos 1580 processor. Right, let's check out the performance of the CPU. There's no surprise, the Poco F7 Ultra offers modern, flagship tier, Snapdragon 8 Elite flagship phone performance, and it's about 40% faster than the Honor 400 Pro, which is actually matching the last gen Honor flagship, Honor Magic 6 Pro, running the same Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. And it's also about 60% faster than Samsung's A56, which itself is a bit better than the V50 as well. We're not going to spend hours discussing the processing power, but for serious gamers, here we've got the 3D Mark Wildlife Unlimited Stress Test, which is a 20-minute stress test. The Poco F7 Ultra was able to deliver its full performance, I mean the Snapdragon 8 Elite's full performance, while the Honor 400 Pro actually delivered similar performance as Honor's last-gen flagship, the Honor Magic 6 Pro. The V50 and A56 are just two mid-range phones. But in terms of stability and sustained performance, mid-range chips are usually generating less heat, so it's more stable. But this time around, I'm impressed by the Honor 400 Pro. It almost delivered perfect stability at 95.5%. What it actually shows us is the liquid cooling system under the hood works really well. Right, I know it's almost half an hour, it's 23 minutes 56 seconds to be exact. We are looking at a 6000 mAh battery on the Honor 400 Pro, at least in the Asia market. But if you are getting this in Europe, you will be getting a 5300 mAh battery, while the Vivo V50 also getting a 6000 mAh battery here in Hong Kong. Should be the same globally, but make sure to check with your local carrier or retailers before actually purchasing it. And for charging, the Honor 400 Pro comes with a 100-watt fast charging brick inside the box, while the Vivo V50 actually charges at 90 watts, not bad at all. But when it comes to the fastest charging speed, the Poco F7 Ultra takes the crown at 120 watts, while the battery capacity is rated at 5,300 mAh. And finally, we do have the Samsung A56 here as well, the 5,000 mAh battery, which charges at 45 watts. Those are conservative and safe figures. Maybe Samsung's just making sure it's not going to be another Note 7. All in all, which is going to be your best mid-ranger in 2025? The Samsung Galaxy A56 is slightly more affordable, but it feels as solid as the flagship. You see all the fine details on the metal frame with the brushed texture. The hardware isn't going to be top tier, but the main camera's almost as good as a flagship phone. While it doesn't include the complete set of Galaxy AI suite, but it does comes with Google Gemini, so you will be getting plenty of AI features after all. Plus, it's running on Samsung's latest One UI 7 interface with 6 years of security updates and 6 years of Android version upgrades. When it comes to the slightly higher price range across these three phones, the Honor 400 Pro also comes with a 6 years of Android version updates and 6 years of security patches updates. If you care about the camera and all these AI features, and you game occasionally but gaming isn't really your top priority, in this case the Honor 400 Pro won't let you down. Now, the Poco F7 Ultra offers 4 years of Android updates and 6 years of security patches update. If performance and gaming matters most to you, this phone is indeed outperforming phones like the iPhone 16 Pro Max and deliver equally good performance as other Android phones that come with a Snapdragon 8 chip. And finally, we have the Vivo V50. It essentially holds its own in its category. It comes with the most advanced portrait mode, with arguably the best skin smoothing effect, as good as on Vivo's flagships. And you will be thrilled by how well the Aura light works with, well, the portrait mode. We've been talking about this all along. So that's about it for the comparison we have here today. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time.